So I'm talking to Sébastien Quenot. Is that correct?
Yes. Nice to
From
meet you.
from the University of Corsica, and we're going to talk about the specific language of your island, which has a very long history. Apparently, it's an island that has been occupied by many different cultures.
The first occupation is before the Roman Empire, and they make more than 100 years to be master of the Corsica. Even if we are very close to Rome, we are in the Italic geography, in the Italic culture too. We speak about this. So Corsica is a long history of battles between empires against different empires, and this is our language is the result of all these meetings. And even if we have been Genovese people under the rule of the Città of the city of Genova during the Middle Age, Corsican language is not so close to the Ligurian one, but very close to the Toscan, so to the Toscan language, which is now the Italian language. So it's a long history of battles on the sea, on the field, on forest, on bridge, and like any minority in the world, and our situation in the Mediterranean Sea is specific in the part of we are very close to the continent, because in the morning when I open my window, I can see the Italy and the Italian islands, the island of Elba, Capraia, Monte Cristo, Pianosa, so some island of the Tuscany archipel, but no, until the 18th century, we take part of the France. Corsica is one of the biggest islands in the Mediterranean Sea, with Sardinia and Sicily, and we are just between, at the north of Sardinia, which is Italian, only at 15 kilometers from Sardinia, and at 80 kilometers from Italy, if we don't count the other Italian island. So we're very close to this environment, to this place, to this people too. But the political situation may say that we are French, and France is more far at the geographic point of view than Italy. And this is the result of so many struggles during the three last century, between from the time of the Enlightenment, the time of the building of a state nation, and between the geopolitical questions around the Second World War.
I read that it was actually both by France.
Yes. In 1755, Corsican people declared the independence of Corsica with a constitution, with a written constitution in 1755. And in this constitution, they say that they are a nation. They say that the people is the sovereign. They say that the government will be under the rule of the constitution. And they speak about the happiness of a nation. So this is a very important text for us of 1755, when in so many places in Europe there were only monarchy and God rights, with God rights. So a few years later, in 1769, there has been many battles, and the most famous is the Battle of Ponteno, where Corsican people have been defeated by the army of the King of France, which was at this time the biggest one of the world. So since 1769, Corsica is under the rule of France, and 1769 is It's not only this. This is the birth of Napoleon. Napoleon, which was Corsican, he was born in Ajaccio. So Napoleon, it was when he was young, he was for the Corsican independence. He wrote to Pasquale Paoli, our father of the nation. He write, I was born when French people come on our coast. So Napoleon was ready for Corsican independence. And after, he became for French Revolution, and he became at the head, and he built and he created the French Empire, the first French Empire.
Yes, he was, I think, the most famous person to come from your country, or not?
I think so. Yes. And it's a huge question, political, in fact, of memory, of history, because Napoleon, he did a few things, very, very few things for Corsica, because he has been more interested by his career, by his life, by his heredity than by Corsica. And in the time of French Revolution, Pasquale Paoli come back from exile to Corsica. And after, he was condemned to death by the French National Convention. It was the time of the guillotine, of the French terror. So at this time, Pasquale Paoli and Napoleon was not so friendly. It was not a friendly relationship. And Napoleon has to leave Corsica very fastly, because the partisans of Pasquale Paoli didn't want him anymore in Corsica. So in our memory in Corsica, generally, Napoleon is seen for so many people like he is the self-made man. He is this model one, but the self-made man without his people, or maybe sometimes against his people. So it's not very, in our memory, he's not a good boy for many Corsican people. And we used to oppose the two main figures, Pasquale Paoli and Napoleon. And nowadays, times change a little bit, because we are working here at the university about the relationship between these two people, and the heritage, the Paulian heritage of the Napoleon work on the point of view of the law, of some ideas of enlightenment, because the father of Napoleon, Carlo Bonaparte, was the secretary of Pasquale Paoli. So this is the reality, the social reality of Corsica. We are few people. Nowadays, we are 350,000 people to live in Corsica. And on this time, it was maybe 1,000 people to live in Corsica. So we are very close at the point of view of the family. And
Only 1,000?
100,000, sorry.
100, okay, 100,000.
Yes, they were very close, and we think that there are some links between these two people, and we try to, with the work of the university, to give some elements to build another memory, a polyphonic memory to Corsica, to see that we have many diverse influences, but they all together build our imaginarian, our Corsican imagination.
The polyphonic element is very typical.
Yes, this is the postal card when people see the cultural, the Corsican culture, the padiella. This is when singers are free to sing together. This has been recognized by the UNESCO like the immaterial heritage of humanity.
And it's very old, this tradition, or is there still recent work that's also polyphonic?
this kind of song, the padiela, the polyphonic, this polyphonic song, knew a great revival in the 70s with the ethnic revival. Protesters, artists, singers, writers did make the padiela became one of the main elements of identification of Corsican people, even if we don't sing it every morning, even if we don't listen it every morning, but this is one of the main important element of our identity. But it's right that at the beginning, if we say that the beginning was the 70s, in the 70s, it was only sung in so many countries of Corsica, not everywhere. And the ethnic revival managed to enlarge the place of this kind of song of become Corsican.
Mm-hmm. Those people sing in Corsu, I suppose. Corsu is well, it's like Italian. Is it a dialect? Is it a separate language? Is there discussion about this?
There were some discussion about this, because at the beginning, during the Middle Age, Enlightenment, and after in the 19th century, there were some diglossia in Corsica with Tuscany was used to write and Corsican to speak. But we have some scenes of text right in Corsican on this time. It's only after with the development of the French in Corsica with compulsory education at the end of the 19th century that the consciousness of to be Corsican people was more aware in the population, and between some intellectuals, some teachers who founded some reviews, some journals, some papers, and one of the first one was in the 1896 at Tramontane, and the leader Santo Casano said to the people, send me only paper in Corsican language. I want no French, no Italian. So at this time they used to write Italian. When France win Corsican people, France closed the university since the 1969 to 1981, more than 2 centuries. So during this time, Corsican used to go to study to Rome, to Pisa, to Firenze in Italy. So the culture was really Italian. And at the end of the 19th century, the first education, the primary education, was made in France. So after they go to study in Paris, Nice, Marseille, Aix. So they change all their representation or all their
the cultural orientation was more towards France. Yeah.
And if Corsican language exists nowadays, it's because of French. Because if French never become in Corsica, we can think that Corsican language would maybe stay at the level of a kind of a dialect of Tuscany. Maybe. It's an hypothesis. And after, during the 20th century, on the first part of the 20th century, before the First World War, 2 teachers founded one paper, Aghjalesi. This is the name of a weapon, of the Pasquale Paoli weapon. This was a paper about Corsican language and culture. And they say that we need to have our literacy. They say that we are people without literacy in our own language, because there is an old Corsican literacy, but not in Corsican language. And they say that writers, Shakespeare, Voltaire, and others made more than the army of his country for his country. So they say that each country needs a literacy in his own language. So After that, after the 1914, it was the First World War, and we have to wait some years in 1920 to have a new movement for Corsican culture, literacy, cultural and political movement, which was a struggle to recognize Corsican language and the Corsican identity. On this time, we can say that it was our first Renaissance, if we compare to the Catalan one, our first ethnic revival in Corsica, our first become again master of ourselves. So at this time, there was a big problem in Corsica and in the world. It was the growth of the fascism, and very close to Corsica, Mussolini, which said that, yes, I want Corsican become Italian because of the Genoese time. During 5th century, Corsica was Genovese, so we are Italian by culture. So Corsican is not a language, it's a part of Italian one.
Yes, that's what they say. So I read about it. It's called irredentism or something like this, where when the fascists came to power in Italy, they wanted to reclaim regions where they said Italian peoples were living, but they were living under foreign rule.
Yes, because Mussolini said Corsicans are speaking, are culturally Italians. And other ones from Nice, from Savoy, from other part on the north of Italy, we need to go to the end of the Risorgimento. This is which said Mussolini, but we have to do a difference between fascism and irredentism, because irredentism is older than fascism. And even at this time, you could be irredentist without being fascist. It's different, but it's right that during the time between the two world wars, it was difficult to be only redentist without being fascist, because
or without
of
being
the huge
called a
influence
fascist.
of Mussolini.
Yeah, it was used to justify territorial claims. Yeah.
It could have a sense. It could have a sense, but if we look at the speech of Corsican people during the two world wars, Corsican people hated Italian one. There are so many reasons, because the Italian is the face of the Genovese one, so of the domination. This is also the face of the poverty, because at this time so many Italians come to work in Corsica and they were very poor. There has been a huge Italian immigration. So Italy was not a dream for Corsican. On the contrary, it was all the contrary. It was a nightmare to become Italian. So it is one of the reasons of the huge the power of the Corsican resistance during the Second World War, because it was easy to do some demonstrations, protests against Italy, because Corsican people hate Italian one at this time. So for Corsican people, it was difficult at this time about the relationship with Corsican language, because some say that no, Corsican is not a language, it's only a dialect of Italian. So why will you learn a dialect or speak in dialect when you can learn French one, which is the language of the work, of the job, of the money, of the social work, to be recognized socially. And this was also the language of the French Revolution, of the human rights, of so many things, and of the colonization too, which was a field of work for Corsican people, which were very numerous to live Corsican. This time, Corsica is the only island of Mediterranean Sea to have seen its population decrease during the 20th century, and mostly during the first part of the 20th century, because there were a huge poverty in Corsica. So the colonization was a field of jobs and of immigration for many Corsicans. And they think that because of France, they could have a job in the colony. So the relationship to the language is like something that we can see abroad, with some shame to be Corsican speaker, shame to speak Corsican, and sometimes more than shame. So they didn't speak. They used to stop the speaking, the transmission to his children. More they were good speakers, more they stop the transmission to his child. So it was a big problem, and it's only after the Second World War, after to be more far than the questions of geopolitics and relationship with Italy, only with the building of Europa, only with the end of the French Empire, that Corsican people come back to Corsica and sometimes do some benchmark between Corsica and colony and say, we are to a French colony. And they say, we have to revival our culture, our language. We have to write, to sing, to be Corsican, because it's part of our heritage. And this is ever the speech of Gianni Goli, which was one of the most famous actors of the Corsican resistance during the Second World War. He was a teacher, socialist, teacher in West Africa. And when he come back to Corsica, he said, but finally we are the same, because I was saying some national romance, some French national romance to Malian people, but it wasn't his history, and we canceled his real history of their memory. So this is the same for us. So at the beginning of ethnic revival in the 60s, in the 70s, we can count so many intellectuals, young people which have been to French university, young people which became teacher, or lawyers, or doctors, which come back to Corsica and say that there is a situation of political domination and there are consequences in Corsica too. There are some important books on this time. There is which one of the Corsican Regional Front, which was like a socialist movement, which wrote Membas sur une île, where they explain all the mechanics of the French domination from 1769 to 1973, the time where the book was published. And at this time, where there were so many demonstrations for ecology, for social protests also, because of the pollution of the Mediterranean Sea, because of favoritism of people which were coming from North Africa after the independence of Algeria.
That's already in the 60s, yes.
In the 60s, yes. And
then you had the Pieds Noirs, the people who
yes.
had to leave. So there were many coming to Corsica.
Yes, there are 17,000 to come to Corsica. This is 10% of the population at this time, in a few years, to come in few years. This is another time of immigration of Corsica, the coming on the installation of the Blackfeet or Pieds Noirs, people which was in Algeria from 2, 3, or 4 generation, which was they used to be farmers, and they come in Corsica to become farmers too. But this was in 2nd century, the first time that France organized a way to develop Corsica. And for the first time, they developed Corsica only for foreigners. So it was a great feeling of injustice for Corsican, for young Corsican. And it was the time of the first bomb in Corsica.
There have been bombs in Corsica. I didn't know about that. Okay, continue.
Yes, yes, Corsica, there is a political conflict important from the 60s, the 70s, with the creation of the National Front of Corsican Freedom, the FLNC, in 1976, after some important movements in Algeria against that we call the Vangeros. It was the pollution of Mediterranean Sea by an Italian company. French and Italian state didn't move. So it was only when young people come in Italy, put a bomb on the boat, that they came to a solution. It was this, after the process of this company, the process, the judgment, the court, when this company come in court, 15 years after this bomb, it was the first decision about environment in France. So it was a long time on a struggle which was both about ecology to defend the coast of Corsica against big building, like we can see in the Balears, against huge tourism, and a struggle about culture too. So from the 1976 to now, it exists this struggle army in Corsica between this movement and the French state.
Yes, the reason I thought about doing an interview with you was exactly that I read an article in the paper about how some buildings of foreign people who have holiday homes in Corsica were blown up. There were no victims, but the buildings were damaged, and this was also apparently a sign to protest against so many people who come to buy land there and to build just for a second holiday home, which makes the prices go up and makes it more difficult for local people to buy something. So it's been going on for a long time, this process. And does it have any result? I mean, have there been laws about priority in acquiring land or buildings for local people? Is that what you want?
In Corsica, we have a high level of poverty of the population and a high level of big house for foreigners, which put them on Airbnb or other place, and the huge increase of the price of the land and of the building and of the house. And the Corsican Assembly vote to preserve this land, to increase the installation of farmers, and to forbid the buying of field or house for people which are not in Corsica from 5 years. But French government refuse this decision, because in France there is only one group, only the French nation. France, at the name of universalism, doesn't recognize different minorities. So in our privacy, we can speak the language, we can have a religion, the faith that we want, but publicly it's forbidden to speak in Corsican because it's not recognized. On the last 6 months, the Corsican representative of the state in Corsica has forbidden the one decision of the Corsican Assembly to speak in his wall, both in French and both Corsican. So we see that the only official language of the Corsican Assembly is French, because it is written in French Constitution. This is the second place. The language of the Republic is only French.
But Corsican has been recognized as a regional language, hasn't it, since 1974?
So on the first time, with the first law for teaching, which allowed to teach regional language in France, it was the Dixon law in 1951. A Corsican language was not recognized because they say that this is a foreign language. Corsican is like Italian, so no.
The same as Flemish in the north of France, it was not in the 1951 law because
Alsatian
it was the dialect allogène. Yes.
Dialect allogène, yes. These two words are terrible because we don't recognize the level of the language, and they say that you are foreigner. No, we have the French government use another denomination. It is the opposite. It said this is the French. These are language of France, and not allogène. It's the contrary. They are all language of France, and they try to recognize, to say that there are so many language in France, too many to recognize them, because one paper about language in French in 1999 of Bernard Secchilini. On this time, it was question for France to ratify the European Charter of Minority Languages. So this man, Bernard Secchilini, said, oh, look, there are 75 languages in France. How do we do? But as I know, there are no other language in France without Corsican, which ask to be recognized, to be official. The Corsican Assembly voted in 2013 for the officiality of Corsican language, and with a huge statute to recognize some language rights to speakers, to people which have in Corsica the rights to learn, the rights to speak in all the situation, and some help, some support to increase the Corsican language in the public life. But during the 10 last year, all French government say no, because we need to change the French constitution. And even on the last month, when the President Macron come to Corsica, and he say that he would like to recognize Corsica like an historic community with an history and language, with insularity. But we are afraid that this small new text, this revision in the Constitution, will be maybe without new rights. In 2008, there has been a change of the French Constitution. They say that regional language are part of the French Republic. But the Constitutional Council said after that it didn't bring any right. The new change of the Constitution, maybe in 2025, will maybe give some language rights, but I'm afraid it could be the fact. The difference, the identity of Corsican language, this is a language which is very, on one hand, very close to Italian, and on another one, there are so many differences in the Corsican language, and it was, and sometimes, a difficulty for some Corsican to say their language is only one language, because there are so many varieties from one place to the other, because Corsica is on a mountain in the sea, great mountain in the sea, so the communication between the different countries was very difficult, and the language gets ever some different things. So in the north, you can say, for example, kawalu for horse in English, and in the south, the two le are replaced by the de, cavado, for example, which is more close from a Sicilian language, for example. There are some difference like this one, difference on the lexical point of view. On the north, you can see fiume from, and in the south, for example, diargalu for how do you say in English, like the Rhône, the Seine, the Rhin, the Thames. So there are some lexical differences, grammatical differences, and what do we do during the 20th century and after with Jean-Baptiste Marcellesi is the building of a concept of the polynomic language. So this is a representation of a language which enlarge so many varieties. But speakers recognize that this is the same language for them. This is a great change because in Corsica we have a great influence of the French language, which is only one because of the French academia. So with a norm about grammatical things, lexical, orthography, and for Corsican language, writers, teachers, journalists too chose the opposite one and to build a norm around the concept of polynomia built by Jean-Baptiste Marcellesi and before him by some writers like Pascal Marchetti and Domenico Antonio Geronimi in the 70s. They write a book, Intrecciade e Cambierine, and there's two kinds of sounds in Corsica. Intrecciade, this is the sound ch or j, which doesn't exist in Italian one. Mm-hmm. So they choose to write it C, C, H, G, with 3 letters for one sound only, mm-hmm. and the j for the sound G, H, G for the other sound. This is one thing. The intrecciade, the enlaced letters. And the cambierine, because in Corsican you can say Corsica, but Agorsica. So when some letters could change the way that you will pronounce them. Second, the place.
That it's the same in Celtic languages. Is there any relationship? There's a mutation of the first language of the first letter for nouns and other words, and sounds like the same because in Breton you also have the k to g change. Is there any Celtic influence?
I don't know, but this is a choice to write the Corsican language because it's a great difference with Italian one. Because in Italian you will say la Corsica, Corsica. This is the same with the place of the letter in the word and with each other has no effect on the way that you will pronounce them. So this is a little difficulty for new speakers, for learners, but they could learn slowly about this point, which is a great difference between Corsican and the other close language. One other thing, for example, is that some letters could change. For example, the sun is usole. Usole, usole. But when it's very hot, you say on summer, Isuleoni. So the O became U, for example. So there are some because the accent change. It's not sol, but suleoni. But when the place change in the word, you change the letter and the O became U, for example. So there are some differences like this, and on another parts, maybe some proverbs, some expressions which are likely others in Mediterranean and others that we can have of specific, but we know that there are some circulations about proverb and expressions. Mm-hmm. This is I think that the main question of the representation that Corsican say this is a specific language one beyond all the different varieties. Corsican says that there's all varieties may the same language and different brother maybe with Italian, with all the different language of Italy, but the representation and the speech of Corsican speakers say that this is a language. And the main influence now is French. It's clearly French about some grammatical point of view, about some lexic, one important part of the lexic, and maybe one question is to choose now between some French or English word like Italian can do, because French is very normative and very on try in French and mostly on the Quebec, for example, to fight against the influence of English. And in Corsica, there is one of my former teachers said me that when you can speak Corsican, you can speak English, because this is the same accent, and there is one important part of the lexical which is from Latin, so you can understand very fastly. Fewer, the flower, for example, and so many other words like this one. The question is to choose how do we take some new words, and we have no institution to build a neology. This is one difficulty, and the journalists, the teachers, they try new words every day, and we have to we work at the university to create a standard of a new word, of new neologism, with the work of the institution which are working about the productions of pedagogic papers, to create a new word and to elaborate Corsican language in his new modernity.
There is no institutes like the Académie Française or for a Corsican that regulates. Okay.
We can say that we try to build one, the Consiglio di Lingua, in the 2012, but from now it's not there is not really a big willingness to increase this work. And I think that sometimes speakers are angry against some journalists, are maybe sometimes angry against the university or against teachers to speak a language that they don't know, they don't heard in when they were younger, naturally, because we don't speak same things, because the language is alive, and it's a good thing, and we have to work to take in the hand the authentic language, the old Corsican language on one hand, and to create and elaborate a new and language really alive, able to speak about everything of modernity. And there is one influence sometimes of a French language, I said you, but sometimes it's a good influence which put them to take a word very authentic. For example, we don't say in Corsican the computer, but l'ordinateur. This is the French word, but the French word is really in the spirit of Corsican language. Yes. And sometimes when we try to invent, to build a new word, this could be a problem of articulation, because, for example, each one try to invent one word. There is the example of the accent on the A or on the A. Some of us call it not the accent, but the aletta, like the fly. The difficulty is to build other words like this. Aletta, to put the accent, it's not, we don't choose to say that. So we have to be very careful with the structure of a language and with the creation of the noun, the verb, the adjective, which could be in the family, in the lexical camp of the word. So this is one point of interest, very, very important for the university to work about this question.
And outside the university, is the language used in media? Is there television, radio, papers, magazines in Corsu?
We have one radio, one public radio, one public television, which use both French and Corsican, but mostly French. There are some help and support. There are some support from the Corsican collectivity to the media to increase the presence of Corsican language on newspapers, on the radio and television. We have very few. It's not enough. If we can recognize that, it's not enough. And we try to create programs to young people, to use them to learn, to hear the Corsican language outside the school too, to normalize Corsican language. But we can recognize that from now, it's really, really not enough. And if Corsican language has no radio linguistic rights, no, it's not recognized in the French Constitution, there is not a law about Corsican language, I think that we could and we should do more. And maybe the new meetings between the Corsican representative and the French government and the French president may open maybe a new way to recognize our language and the linguistic rights of Corsicans.
Okay, I think it was a nice ending.
Thank you.